Hello everyone, my name is Ian, you're watching Big Rock Moto, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, the idea of putting an inline six-cylinder engine in a motorcycle chassis doesn't make a lot of sense. An engine like this is very big, very wide, and it's very difficult to fit inside a typical motorcycle frame. It also makes far more power than anybody really needs. But don't tell that to BMW, because in 2011, they brought out their K1600 line of touring and sport touring motorcycles. These bikes are powered by a 1,649cc inline six-cylinder engine, making a screaming 160 horsepower and a boatload of torque, somewhere around 130 foot-pounds. For 2022, BMW have revised their six-cylinder model lineup, including this Grand America that I'm sitting on right now. So here's what we're going to do in today's video. I'm going to briefly walk you through the updates that BMW have made to the 2022 1600 line of bikes. Then I'm going to walk you through the different models, including the GT, the GTL, the Grand America, and the B for bagger. And then we're going to spend most of our time answering six very important questions about this motorcycle. One question for each cylinder. Now, if you want to nerd out and geek out on all the various specs of this motorcycle, I'm going to put those in a video description below, because unlike most of my videos, I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter and I'm not going to go into all the exact nitty-gritty. So if you want that, those are all in the video description below. All right, for 2022, BMW have made a number of significant updates to their 1600 line of motorcycles. So let me just walk you through these really quickly. So BMW has revised the six-cylinder engine in this bike. It now meets EU5 regulations and has a new engine control unit. It now makes the same 160 horsepower, which is unchanged from the previous model, but it makes the power earlier. It's 6,750 RPM versus the previous model, 2021 and prior, which made that power at 7,750 RPM. So it makes its power earlier. For torque, you are up about 4 foot-pounds of torque from 129 foot-pounds now to 133 foot-pounds, and that torque comes in at 5,250 RPM. BMW claims that they have improved the acceleration across the entire speed range thanks to this increased torque. Another thing BMW has done is they have introduced the next generation dynamic ESA to this model. So it's a fully automatic electronic suspension tied to the riding modes, and it has automatic load compensation for luggage and passengers. This bike also has a new full LED adaptive headlight as standard. They've also made the 10.25 inch TFT instrument cluster standard across this lineup, and it has a lot of different features. You can split the screen, you can connect your phone, and we're going to show some of that today. They've also added 4 programmable favorite buttons, which we'll also take a look at, and they've updated the audio system. All right, so now we've talked through the changes for 2022. Let's briefly talk about the model range. So it can be a little bit confusing. BMW actually has 4 different models of this bike. When they released this bike, I believe back in 2011, they just had the GT and the GTL, but since then they've added the B and now the Grand America. So the K1600 GT is the most sport touring or sportiest oriented of the bunch. It has the most aggressive riding position, a little bit more forward bars. It doesn't have the top trunk, and overall it's just a little bit lighter, a little bit sportier entry in the lineup. The GTL has always been the long distance runner, the long distance touring bike to go head to head with something like a Honda Goldwing. They also have the K1600B or bagger, and that looks very similar to this bike, except it doesn't have this top case here, so you just get the side cases. And then there's this bike, the Grand America. So on the Grand America, you get the floorboards, you get some different handlebars, and you get this top case here on the back for additional storage space. So that's the model lineup in a nutshell.
Is the K1600 fast? Well, you guys can be the judge of that. Punch it. Oh, shit! Oh, shit! Holy moly. And that was uphill, and we're already at high elevation too. Oh. Unlimited power. So speaking of, is the bike fast, we have to talk about this engine. The engine is simply unlike anything else that you've ridden. The power band is electric, so it doesn't really have any dips or valleys. It's just power all the way. And it doesn't matter what RPM you're at, there's no vibration. And when I say no vibration, I don't mean like, oh, just minimal vibration or low. I mean none. Absolutely none. The engine is silk. So at any RPM, so let me show you something silly. I'm going to go 6th gear. I'm going to go down to 1200 RPM, okay, idling. The bike, there's no vibration in the bike, there's no vibration in the mirrors, and if I roll on the throttle, it simply pulls away incredibly smoothly. And before you know it, you're going over the speed limit, right? So the thing about this engine is it's sneaky fast. You don't realize how fast you're going because the bike is so smooth and it has so much torque. And because the bike is so huge, it's the size approximately of the Titanic, you don't really have much of a sense of how fast you're going. Punch it. Yes, sir. Oh, I could do this all day.
Is BMW's K1600 Grand America a comfortable touring motorcycle? The answer is mostly yes, but a few things no. So let me explain what I mean. Let's talk about the seat height and the seating position first. So you can see the seating position is very upright and very neutral. However, because it is a very low seat at only 29 inches off the ground, which they do to make it friendly for shorter riders, and because this bike weighs over 800 pounds, so you don't feel like it's even tippier than it already is, they give you the low seat height. But what that does is, if you see, I don't have as much leg room as I would like. So my knee is kind of at too sharp of an angle for comfort on long distance. Now, a couple more things. The seat is extremely wide and well padded. It's pretty comfortable to ride all day. The passenger seat is amazing as well. And you have the floorboard. So what I do, if I'm on a straighter stretch road and cruising, I'll set the cruise control, get everything tuned in. I'll be up here on the floorboards to stretch my legs out and relax this angle in my knees. So that does make the bike comfortable. Now, what else makes it comfortable? Well, for one, you've got this windshield here. So the windshield goes up and down electronically, allowing you to fine-tune the amount of wind you get. You also have these wings here, which allow you on a hot day to direct air at your body. So you have good wind protection, but the caveat is there's actually a lot more wind buffeting than I would like to see. Especially when you raise the windshield up higher, what you get is wind hitting you in your back and hitting you in the back of your helmet and pushing you forward like this, and it's very unpleasant. So I find that if I ride with the windshield, with the top of the windshield about at my eye level, that tends to give me a pretty smooth ride, and it's pretty good. Now, other comfort items you have heated seats, you have heated grips, you have cruise control, you have adjustable levers, you have an adjustable handlebar angle, of course. I talked about the highway pegs. You have, it's a comfortable touring motorcycle. Now, there's one huge exception that I want to mention here. And that is that this bike, the Grand America model in particular, something to do with the floorboards and the lower chassis and the rear and the top case, something to do with all of that. It makes this bike wander on the highway. It's not dangerous, it's not like out of control wobble, but it wanders and it's not stable. So let's cut to me on the freeway and kind of show you what I mean.
So apparently I'm not even going to have to get on the freeway to show you what I mean about the stability. So even just going 55, 60 miles per hour, around 100 kilometers per hour behind these cars, and we've got some wind here, the motorcycle is not, it doesn't track straight. It kind of wanders around, and you can feel the bike being pushed around by the wind. And this is made a lot worse, way worse, if you're on a highway with rain grooves that run, parallel to your direction of travel, like the freeways here we have in California. But even here, Like, the bike just doesn't track on a straight line. It's very disconcerting. Now, you eventually kind of get used to it, but it's still not something that I enjoy. Now, I've looked into this, I've read about it. It seems to be isolated to the Grand America, something to do with the floorboards and the top case and the way the rear of the bike's really low. It just doesn't work for aerodynamics. And so on this wind that's hitting me from the side, you feel the bike, you probably can't see it in the video, but you feel the bike wiggling around, and you don't expect that on an 800-pound touring bike. And frankly, I think it's unacceptable. Like, I would totally not buy this bike because of that issue. I mean, because other than that, the bike's pretty awesome, but that's pretty much a deal breaker for me. Now, some people say that if you change the tires, that it can help a lot with that, and that could be true. Tires do have an impact on that. And also, the people who ride the GT models, the GTLs, and even the baggers, they don't seem to report this. It just seems to be isolated to the Grand America, and BMW knows about this because they've limited the bike to 100 miles an hour, and they have a warning in the top case about not going too fast. So it's very disappointing, and something that, I mean, I can even feel it right now. I'm only going 55 miles an hour. It's even worse on the freeway. There's no point in going to the freeway because you're not going to see it in a video anyway, but just take my word for it. And anyway, so that part is, in terms of is it a comfortable touring bike, that part kind of takes a lot of the positive aspects away. So is the technology on the K1600 Grand America any good? Well, it's very much a mixed bag when it comes to technology with this bike. So here's my honest opinion of it after traveling with this bike for a few days on my trip. So in terms of the basic stuff, you know, the windshield, the cruise control, the way the buttons work, the multi-controller, that's all good. The TFT is this big, wide, I think it's 10 inches diagonal, which is great. Now, I have it in a full screen instrumentation mode, but what you can do is do split screen like this, and then you can select with the multi-controller, do you want the computer, trip computer, do you want your navigation map here or your directions, and we'll get to that in a minute. Radio, which you can turn off and on. So the radio comes through speakers here and in the back on the Grand America, and it's fairly loud, but I don't think most people are going to use it very much. It's not as loud as the system on the R18 Transcontinental. So those are the options for your split screen. Now, so I have the bike paired to my Bluetooth headset, and also the bike is paired to my Samsung Galaxy S20 phone. And so because of that, we're able to access all the technology. So if I go in here and click down on menu button, I can go into navigation, and what I can do is, I think there's a way to make this map full screen, but you can access navigational controls through this interface here. Now, it's not great. It's not as good as Apple CarPlay, Android Auto in a modern automobile, or on Honda's Goldwing or Africa Twin or bikes like that. It's a little bit clumsy to use, and it's not my favorite system. It's pretty clunky, and also the app pretty much takes over your phone. So if you look at my phone here, you can see BMW Motorrad, keep your phone unlocked, which drains the battery. And then if you want to use anything on your phone, you have to end map mode, which takes away your navigation, your map navigation on the screen. So it's really silly because I need to do other stuff with my phone, but in order to do that, I have to shut down the navigation on the bike. So I would say not a huge fan of that system. Now, in terms of, yeah, you can do control your phone, you can, you know, go through call lists, do your contacts. That part's fine, and it works fine with the Bluetooth. Media, you can access the media on your phone, but you're going to have to use your phone to, you know, play the music or whatever app you want, and then it will come through here, and you can control basically forward and back and volume through the motorcycle. Although for me, the volume control doesn't work. I have to use the volume control on my Senna. The volume control through here, for some reason, doesn't actually change the volume. So I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's a thing with the Senna that I have or something to do with my phone. There's other things you can do here in the menu, so you can go into My Vehicle. This is typical BMW stuff, really good menus, readouts, tire pressures, fuel mileages, ranges, service monitors, all that kind of stuff is here. So that part works fine. Now, let's get to the cell phone compartment. So what BMW have done on this bike is they've given you a place to keep your cell phone. So if you push this button, what's going to happen is the screen's going to raise up. Now it has to raise up in order for this compartment to open. Now the compartment is unlatched. It has a little catch here to know when the screen is up. Now what you're supposed to do is unlatch this, and then there's a cable to connect your phone, and you can connect your phone, which charges it, and then try to jam the phone in here somehow. But what I find is that first, it's very difficult to get the cable in the right position and then to get the phone in the right position. So this is an S20, not even the Plus, the big one. And I have a hard time getting this to slide down in here. And see, it doesn't want to close. And my phone's not even that big. Now, other journalists have had better luck with this. Sometimes I have to kind of slam it like that, but then it'll pop open. I'm really not a big fan of this design. Now, it is air conditioned. There is actually a fan in here to keep your phone cool, so that part is good, and it is kind of anti-theft, because if you are able to get this latched properly and put the windshield down, somebody can't really, first of all, they're not going to know that your phone's in here really, and then they can't really open this with the windshield down. So kind of anti-theft built in. And to get my phone back out, I have to open that, open this secondary latch, get this, fumble with the cable. I don't like this at all. I'd rather just have my phone on the handlebars, which is what I did for my trip. I had it mounted on a RAM mount here, so I could actually control my audio in different settings and things, you know, as I'm going. So anyway, not a huge fan of that. The other complaint I would have about the technology on the bike is that it has regular cruise control and not adaptive cruise control. So all of us were expecting them, when they did the update, to put adaptive cruise control on this bike, since this is their flagship. It's very expensive, it's a high-end touring bike, but they didn't do it. And the reason that they say they didn't do it is because packaging. They couldn't fit the sensor in here without doing a major re-engineering of the whole front end. They couldn't fit the sensor, and also because the brakes are not fully integrated ABS, they couldn't. The adaptive cruise control needs full control of the braking system, and they couldn't. This bike doesn't have that because it's an older platform. So that's something that, you know, it's kind of disappointing not to have the adaptive cruise on a bike like this. The RT has it, and the R18 Transcontinental has it, so it seems kind of weird that they didn't put it on this bike. Now you can see what's going to happen if you get a phone call. This is of course spam, as it always is, and you know, I'll get these telemarketing calls, and it's trying to come through the bike, which would then go through my Senna. So can the BMW 1600 Grand America keep up with sport bikes? Whoa! So I put the bike into dynamic mode, which firms up the suspension and makes the throttle response faster. Doesn't give the bike any more power, it just makes the throttle response sharper. And the difference in the suspension damping is very noticeable between road and dynamic modes. So can you keep up with a sport bike? No, but you can keep up with most other people. And between corners, you sure have a lot of pull. The high-speed handling of this bike for going through corners, like these sweeping corners, is surprisingly good for a bike of its weight and size. I would say it's probably better than a Goldwing for stuff like this. The low-speed handling sucks, it's too heavy. But man, on stuff like this thing can really carve it up. You're not going to keep up with sport bikes, obviously. This thing is the size and weight of the Titanic. But it has a lot of lean angle. You don't scrape anything. I've never scraped anything on this bike, and I've ridden it pretty hard over the past 1,000 miles I've put on it. You can keep up with a Hyundai Elantra if that was your question. I know that's probably not what you were thinking about, but... Oh, we need to pass slow traffic. Do you think we have enough power? Let's go to second gear just in case we don't have enough power. And then punch it. there's quite a few things about this bike that I don't like very much, but dude, the engine is not one of those things. This engine is a freaking masterpiece. So this bike uses BMW's Duolever front end. It's not telelever, but it works in a similar way. It prevents too much brake dive and it kind of isolates you from the road. So it works similar to telelever. The handling, I mean, in terms of how it contributes to the handling, I think it's probably part of why this bike handles so well for higher speed cornering. But the overall chassis seems very well suited to, you know, this kind of sport touring riding. And this model of this line of 1600 bikes has become pretty famous for how good of a sport touring bike it is. Maybe with the exception of this Grand America due to the stability issues, but in terms of braking, how are the brakes on this bike? Well, they're what you expect from BMW. You can stop this, oh God, I'm getting seasick. You can stop this thing on a dime, even though it's over 800 pounds. It's got plenty of brakes. Can the K1600 Grand America hold all of your crap? The answer is yes. So let me show you the luggage. So the top case, open this up here. And by the way, you can lock and unlock all of this from the handlebar, which is really nice. And you can even do that while you're riding in case you forget to lock it. So open up the top case and you have room for pretty much 2 full face helmets. I mean, maybe not if they're like XXL or something, but pretty big. It's lined with carpet. So when I took a road trip on this, I used this for like maps and water and snacks and extra jackets and layers and, you know, helmet cleaning stuff and all that kind of stuff. But you can put whatever you want in there. And then for the saddlebags, you can see there's a heated seat switch here as well. So here's the lock. You push that, you open this, and then you've got these saddlebags, which are not huge, but you can actually stuff quite a bit of stuff back in here. Excuse me, and then the lids have some capacity as well. So I don't have much in here now because we're shooting these videos, manuals, things like that. But yeah, you can fit, I mean, I fit all my clothes for like a 4-day trip. You could even do like a week-long trip. You could fit all your clothes in here. And if you're traveling with a passenger, maybe what you could do is give your passenger one of the saddlebags for all of his or her stuff. So the other side is here. It's the same side. It's the same size, excuse me, on both sides of the bike. And they have these little cargo nets here that you can kind of hold stuff from falling out. So yes, I would say that you can definitely fit a lot of crap on your K1600. And if you're traveling by yourself, of course, and you want to take a lot of stuff, you could also strap a duffel bag here to this huge rear seat.
So should you buy a BMW K1600, whether it's this Grand America or any of the models in the lineup, or should you buy a Honda Goldwing? So many people have sent me messages, and I've seen so much chatter out on social media about this versus a Goldwing. So let me break this down as simply as I can. The 1600 from BMW will leave the Goldwing in the dust in terms of acceleration and engine performance and the amount of fun and passion that comes out of this engine. Being an inline 6, it revs much higher. It has far more horsepower. This is 160 horsepower versus about 120 horsepower on the Goldwing. It also even has more torque. It sounds better. It's intoxicating. So the engine definitely wins here. The Goldwing engine is much more focused on low down torque. It doesn't rev as fast. It's the opposed design. But now that leads me to what I want to say is that this bike feels way heavier than a Goldwing. This bike feels almost, I want to say twice as heavy. You're not going to believe me when I say that, but honestly, it feels so much more top heavy and uncomfortable at slow speeds because it feels so tippy and you feel the weight where you don't feel that on the Goldwing. The magic of the Goldwing is that it has the engine that's low in the chassis, the opposed flat six engine, and that's incredible for weight distribution. And they just push all the way down on that bike. It doesn't feel the 800 pounds that it is. This bike feels every bit of 800 pounds, if not more. And that takes a lot of the fun out of this bike and a lot of the comfort out of this bike for me. What about in terms of technology? Actually, you would think BMW would be in the lead here, but that's not true. In my opinion, the Honda has much better tech. I've ridden the Honda, I reviewed it. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, meaning that to control your music, to control your navigation, to interface your phone with the motorcycle and how you interact with the technology is far, far superior on the Honda versus the clunky and outdated and difficult and non-intuitive system on this BMW. You get the cell phone compartment here on the BMW, which doesn't work very well. It's very frustrating to use. It never really latches right. You can't really fit your phone in there, even though they say that you can. You have to plug it in and then the app takes over your whole phone. I could go on, but I really don't love the tech here. On the BMW, you get those nice analog gauges with the TFT in the middle, so you have a nice combination of different instruments and you can get the different kind of info that you want. So in terms of technology, I would give the Goldwing a win. In terms of outright fun to ride, this bike wins. In terms of resale value, the Goldwing is better. Which bike would I buy? Well, I'd probably buy the Goldwing, even though this is more fun. Final thoughts on BMW's K1600 series of bike, and specifically this Grand America behind me. I think that the K1600 is one of those rare motorcycles that doesn't come around too often, and the reason really has to do with the engine. With this bike, for me anyway, it's all about that screaming inline six-cylinder engine. It's silky smooth, it's unlike anything else in the motorcycling world today, and it sets this bike apart from anything else on the road. Now, I fully understand that a large, heavy, expensive touring motorcycle like this bike here is not everybody's cup of tea, and frankly, it's really not mine either. But I will tell you this, if you have a chance to ride one of these bikes, take a demo ride, ride your friend's bike, try to get one of these out for a ride, because I feel that it's a very special experience. It's something that I think you should experience at least once in your motorcycling career. I think you're really going to be blown away by the engine in this bike, and it's something worth spending some time with. And if you are a hardcore long distance touring rider looking for something a little bit different than an RT or a Goldwing or an FJR, you should really give this bike a shot if you haven't already. So I hope this video was useful. Please support Big Rock Moto. There's ways to do that in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Please ride safe, and we'll see you out there.